Hey guys, it's Carter from Lumbridge Lounge here with another guide on the Hallowed Sepulchre. And this is a guide that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I felt like I wasn't very good at it at the time, and so after spending a few hours doing this activity, I feel like I'm a little more confident in showing you guys how it works. So to get started, I want to show you here what my gear setup is. This is for if you plan on doing most of the coffins and looting most of the coffins during this activity. You want to have your graceful on, and you also want to have your hallowed equipment, which you will gain through doing this activity. So if this is your first time, you won't be able to have these at the beginning. You get these through the hallowed marks that you'll get within the activity. But you'll definitely want to have a lava battle staff with cosmic runes, a strange old lockpick, stamina potions, 4 vampire dust, or 8 if you're barely starting, and 8 mahogany planks, rune nails, at least 50 or more, a Dorgishan crossbow just because of its weight, it's a little lighter, a hammer or a hallowed hammer, and a saw. The first gear that I recommend you upgrade first, it is the ring, the hallowed ring. The reason why I suggest you get this one first is because if you fail an obstacle within the Hallowed Sepulchre, instead of fading into black and slowly restarting where you were last at, your last checkpoint, it will just simply teleport you instantly back to the very last checkpoint you were at, and it really speeds up your progress, and it's way less punishing. Requirements to even participate in the Hallowed Sepulchre is you need to be able to have access to the City of Darkmire, which requires the completion of Sins of the Father. You'll need at least 52 agility, but I recommend at least 82 agility to get to floor 4. But the best XP rates is if you have 92 agility or up. But I doubt a lot of you have that if you're wanting to get into the Hallowed Sepulchre for the first time. You also, I recommend you have 70 plus hit points, and make sure you have a Saradomin item. That way you can use the magic obelisks to get your run energy back, and it just makes it way smoother. You don't have to take as many stamina potions with you. Some skills required to loot the coffins and to get through the Hallowed Sepulchre is 66 thieving, 56 construction, 54 prayer, 7 magic, and 62 range. To get to the Hallowed Sepulchre, I like to take my Draken's Medallion and teleport to Darkmire, and then run directly north all the way to the top, and then run directly east around these buildings, and you'll find the Hallowed Sepulchre here in the northeastern part of Darkmire. And another very quick way to get here is if you've done this minigame before a few times, you'll get these hallowed marks as you do the minigame, and you can trade these for hallowed crystal shards, which will teleport you directly to this room, no matter where you're at in the game. A plugin I recommend you turn on while you're doing this activity is under tile indicators. You can type that in your configuration tab, and if you go to the settings, you want to make sure you have highlight true tile on. That way you'll know exactly where your character actually is while you're running around, because if you didn't know, you're actually a couple tiles ahead of you, not exactly where you're currently at. This makes it very useful for you to dodge obstacles more accurately, and it makes you a little bit more confident while you're doing this activity. So definitely turn on the true tile indicator under tile indicators. Another great plugin is called ground markers. You want to make sure this is turned on and go to the settings and make sure that show import and export options is enabled. That way you can go to the link in my description and you can find the import to put all of the ground markers in for this entire activity. You can highlight that whole set of basically code, and then right click your world map, and you'll want to import ground markers. After you import all of those ground markers, you'll be able to see when you enter the Hallowed Sepulchre that there are many different ground markers placed within the entire activity, which will increase your chances of getting through this so much better. It just highlights little spots that are safe spots, that are places you should click, and places that you should use to get through very fast and efficiently. And finally, the last plugin I recommend is the agility plugin. If you have that on, you can go to the settings and scroll all the way down, and you'll find that there is a Hallowed Sepulchre drop down menu, and I like to check all of these off, and you can select whatever projectile color you want, and I think I just used the default one. I never messed with it, but The highlight projectiles is very, very useful for you to be able to see where they are, and just it's way more, it catches your eye. I couldn't live without it, honestly. Alright, and now I'm going to show you example runs through each floor, but I'm going to do it without searching any of the coffins, so I'll have a little bit of a different setup with me. It just doesn't have a lot of this gear that I'm wearing, but I will show you at least, there's going to be 2 different methods that I'll show you for each floor, except for the first floor, I believe. And so there are different routes that it randomly puts you through, so not every time it's going to be the same, but as you go through this, you'll get more used to it, and it'll just be muscle memory from then on. But I'll try to explain some certain spots and make sure that you're ready to do this on your own. So let's get to it. So starting with floor 1, it's fairly simple. There's really nothing to it. You just have to make your way through these fire obstacles, and just with the ground markers down there, it makes it a lot simpler to see where you can actually stand that's safe. Once you have these ground markers down, it's just very, very simple to get through. The next obstacle is a throwing sword. You want to make sure that you wait for it to get back to the statue, then you're clear to go. Just go immediately after it's safe. The next obstacle, they only shoot 1 arrow at a time, these 3 statues, so just make sure to move out of the way in the row that has the arrow. After that, you should be good. Floor 2 will, of course, get progressively more difficult than the first floor, but it still is pretty easy to do. Of course, you just dodge these fire statues using the ground tiles. Just take your time. Next, you want to head south and dodge these arrow statues. They're a little bit faster than the other ones. However, it's just 1 at a time, so it's very simple to get through. These tiles here, if a yellow one is lit up, that means you will go back tiles. If you step on a blue tile, you'll be pushed forward. Once you make it down here, you have to dodge more fire statues. Of course, using these ground tiles just to know exactly where you're safe to go. And you will be dodging more fire statues. Of course, take your time when you're first learning this, just to get used to it. And that is floor 2. And from now on, there are going to be multiple routes that you can take through each floor. I'm going to show you another route for floor 2. Starting here, you get these arrows from the 3 statues. Just make sure to move out of the rows that you see charging up with the statue. Once you get past that, you'll need to avoid these yellow glowing tiles, or they're going to push you back like that. Just like right here, it messes me up again. However, I'm able to get past this flying sword just in the last split second. But don't be afraid to take your time and leave right at the right moment. Then as soon as you head down these stairs, the second part of floor 2 continues with more flying arrows from these 3 statues. Just step away from them and you'll be good. And that is the end of a different route for floor 2. And floor 3, this is where it starts to get a little bit more difficult, but no worries, it just takes a little bit of practice and you'll be good. Now we will see 2 projectiles being shot at a time from the 3 statues. Just do the same thing as you learned before, but just a little bit more precise. From here, you'll see I have a tile in the middle that says not always safe, so every other time that tile will be free, so just time it right and you'll be able to get through. Make sure to avoid this sword flying through while also avoiding the yellow and blue tiles. You can use the blue tile to your advantage, but I find it easier to just run in a straight line on the left side, and I usually get lucky most of the time and I usually avoid them. Just avoid the flying projectiles. You'll see that I barely missed that one, but because of the True Tile plugin, I was able to be ahead of it and be totally safe from it. Once you head down these stairs, you'll be facing one of the first very difficult puzzles of the Hallowed Sepulchre. So you'll want to get yourself from here all the way up north to finish this section of the Hallowed Sepulchre. You'll have to avoid these 2 arrow projectiles as well as the flaming statues, and there's 2 different sections of the flaming statues. So you'll see that I passed through the first section and I'm now passing through the second section of the flaming statues. So you'll see that I wrote down on the left side I wrote left, and on the right side I wrote right, just to indicate which row the flames will appear on. So I like to stand on the left row of the very first section, and as soon as the flames go away, I run to the next section, make sure I stand in the safe spot against the projectiles, and then as soon as those flames go away, I'm ready to run to the next side of the second section. And here's another route of getting through floor 3. To begin, you'll need to go through a set of flaming statues. You'll see I wrote down in the middle, not always safe, so just make sure to use that and utilize it so that if you can get halfway through and then wait until getting through it all. This one, just wait until the sword gets all the way back to the statue and then run. I like to put a tile marker right here just to know that it's a safe spot. The next one is a little difficult. You just got to get through the sets of 2 arrow projectiles while navigating through the tiles. I try not to really look at the tiles too much because they don't really bother me or mess me up that much. This one I timed it right just because the sword made it to the statue right away, but there is the safe spot right there. You can wait for the sword to get back. And we are here again to the hard part of floor 3. You'll see here I just take my time. Sometimes I wait until I'm ready. I get myself into that left row. As soon as the flames go away and I'm in the safe spot of the arrows, I run up, get into the safe spot again of the left row, run all the way through it, making sure I'm not going to get hit by the arrows, and then I'm good. Alright, starting floor 4. You've made it past floor 3 and you're ready to go on to floor 4. You will now be introduced to these lightning strike spots. They're usually in that 5 tile pattern. They just stun you. If they hit you, they won't make you reset or anything, so they're not too bad. This one, just make sure you time it right when the sword gets back to the statue. You can use those blue tiles to speed up the process a little bit, but it's not necessary. This one is just another long row of getting through the 2 arrow projectile statues while trying to avoid as best as you can these tiles where it's pretty hard not to avoid them. It just kind of messes you up a little bit. Just if you persevere through it, you'll usually find yourself getting through it fine. This one, I recommend waiting until both tiles shoot the flames like this, because that resets the pattern. It's going to shoot left like this, and that's going to shoot right, and it's going to do it again left and right, and then it'll do both at the same time. So you want to make sure not to get yourself caught in when they're shooting both, because if you're in there, you're going to have to reset. And here's another long row of avoiding the 2 projectiles while also avoiding the tiles, as well as introducing lightning strikes to the mix, which will just stun you in place if you get hit by them, which is dangerous if you're about to get hit by a projectile. So try to avoid getting hit by those lightning strikes. Once you make it down here, you will need to wait for the sword to get back to the statue before you can proceed. And as soon as that happens, immediately run and make your way to the end of the hallway while avoiding the arrow projectiles. I recommend clicking in a diagonal tile in front of you so that you can continue running forward and continue to get as far ahead of that sword as possible. Try not to click behind you or your character is going to slow down, turn around, run back, and it's going to make it really hard to get through that part. So just try to make sure to click in a forwards diagonal pattern to avoid the projectiles. And let's show another route of getting through floor 4. You'll first be faced with some flaming statues. You can use this tile in the middle as a safe spot. It's very, very simple. After that, you can click all the way up there to the lightning strikes. I like to click on the one in the middle because you only have to dodge 2 if you run down the middle. However, I did not do that this time, and you see I got stunned by the lightning. This one's easy if you just click as soon as you see the sword and just run right behind it. There is another way to get through it, but the easiest way is to just run right behind the sword as soon as the statue throws it. After that, you'll have to make yourself down the long hallway of 2 projectiles. This time you don't need to deal with any of the tiles, so it's not too hard. Just make sure you click diagonal routes in front of you to avoid the projectiles as efficient as possible. And then you'll make your way down to the next floor beneath you on floor 4. This section is a little tricky. All you have to do is wait for the sword to get back to the statue, and you kind of have to time it right with all the traps, because if you don't, you'll get caught in the lightning strikes and the yellow tiles, but if not, you'll pretty much avoid every single trap on the way there. And most of the time, I usually find myself not having too much trouble with it. You just kind of have to figure out that sweet spot after a few tries, and just click all the way through the hallway, and you'll be fine. This section is just another section where there's 2 projectiles with the tiles. You'll just have to keep making your way through that, avoiding the yellow tiles as much as you can, or it's just going to really mess you up. And after that, you've made it to the end of floor 4. Floor 5, the final floor. As soon as you get down here, you immediately want to go left and click on this here, the first here tile that I wrote, and then click on the next here tile. Wait for the fire, click on the next one. There's a much quicker method, but I like this one. It's more comfortable. I don't have to think about it too much. The next one, you just wait for the sword to get back to the statue. I don't know why I clicked, but I like to use these blue tiles to get my way through, because you most likely need to get through 2 blue tiles to get fast enough to get through it, or if the sword is coming back, you can actually hit a blue tile to kind of skip through that sword as it's coming back. You can really find what's more comfortable for you as you go along. This, you'll just have to avoid 2 projectiles while going through the tiles. And then after this, I strongly suggest you use these tile markers that I have. I have a start here. You need to wait for the flame to be right in front of you to start. And then you click on the next here tile. As soon as the flame goes off, you want to click on the next here tile as soon as possible to be there quick enough. You can skip all these lightning strikes if you run from these 2 start and end tiles. And then you just do the same thing. Wait for the flame in front of you. Click on that tile. Wait for the next flame in front of you. Wait for the flame. And then you're at this next section. Simply wait for the sword to come back to you. What I like to do is hit a blue tile, usually on the 2nd row, and then immediately hit the next blue tile on the last row, and that should speed you up fast enough to avoid the sword. Now we have another long corridor of 2 projectiles and all kinds of different traps, the lightning traps, the yellow traps, the blue traps. This one can be tricky at times. Sometimes it's not. It takes some practice, of course. Just try to avoid the projectiles as much as possible, because nothing else can really reset you. And we have now made it to the very last puzzle of the Hallowed Sepulchre. This is, in my opinion, the hardest set of obstacles before you complete the Hallowed Sepulchre as a whole. This is the one that took me the longest. It has many different strategies to get through it, but I'm going to show you how I get through it. And of course, I'm still learning how to get through it as well. But after some of these tips that I have for you, it is a lot easier than it was when I first started learning this last obstacle. So with this last obstacle, you have these first sets of flaming statues. So as you see, I have rows of darkened tiles that show where the left flames will be. And then there's tiles that are not marked in the middle that will show where the right flames will be. So while avoiding the 2 projectiles that are constantly shooting down towards you, my rule is that if the flame hits the dark row, that just means the next safe spot is a dark row. If the flame hits a lighter row, which is the right side, the next safe spot will be to stand on one of those lighter rows. Then you'll also have to go through a set of lightning strikes, which are simple. You'll also have to get through these 2 rows of flaming statues, which are not too bad. After that, you have another set of lightning to hit. And then after that, you have another set of flaming statues, which is the same principle. If the flame is on a dark tile, that just means stand on a dark tile the next time a flame happens. I'll show you in an example after this. After that, you'll be facing 2 rows of flaming statues at the end, which is just a little tricky to avoid because you're so close to the projectiles of the statues. After that, you're home free. Here's an example run of the last obstacle on floor 5. You see that I saw that the flames were on the right side, which is the lighter colored rows. So I stood next to one of those lighter rows. I'm avoiding these lightning strikes by just kind of crisscrossing around. There's flames that are in front of me, but I was able to skip them because I was a little early. I wait for the flame to disappear, cross that dangerous section, cross this section of lightning strikes, and I do the same thing. I see that the flame is on the dark tiles, so I'm going to stand on one of these dark rows while avoiding the 2 projectiles. And because I'm not ready yet, I'm just going to stand on the one in front of me because I know that that next one's going to be safe. Of course, it's going to be dark, light, dark, light. That are the safe spots. And after that, while avoiding the 2 projectiles, you have finally finished the Hallowed Sepulchre, and you can now loot from the Grand Coffin. Congratulations. Alright, I think that about does it for my Hallowed Sepulchre guide. Thank you guys for watching. I definitely just suggest that if you guys are having trouble with this, just keep at it, keep practicing. You'll definitely get better over time. It took me a long time to get comfortable with it, and if you guys have any questions about my guide or about the Hallowed Sepulchre, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.